But what I want to say is that all these readings are wrong, because the true question is not what does it truly mean. It means all of this, all these inconsistent fears. Imagine me, an ordinary citizen in the United States, which, thanks God I'm not. I fear nature, tornado, ecological catastrophe. I fear immigrants, normal racism, everyday life racism. I fear being exploited by big companies, whatever, and the shark, in a way, condenses in one figure all these inconsistent fears. In the same way as, for example, in Germany of the 20s and 1930s, ordinary German, after the military defeat and crisis, they feared financial exploitation, national humiliation, what they saw as sexual degradation, all this explosion of free sexuality, and the Jew became a figure which somehow a symbol which united all these fears, which is why, as I developed in my book, which I think is at least translated into Croat, škakljivli subject, I think it was the ticklish subject, which is why, how should I put it, it's not enough, I hope you will get it, to be truly anti-Semitic if you say, and I'm not saying you should say this, no, but just to give you the logic, if you say Jews are dirty, speculating, exploiting us, and so on, this is still a normal racist prejudice. You become truly anti-Semitic when you turn this around and when you say they are dirty, exploitative because they are Jews. You know, as if being a Jew is the mysterious X behind which, as it were, explains all of it. This is the logic of fetishism at its purest. Now, okay, since I say I will be a little bit shorter, no, but it looks we will have to make a historical compromise between short and long. Let me just go, because I would like to go with a couple of crucial points. Because, as I said, it's much more difficult to convince a fetishist, a fundamentalist fetishist. This is why I must, with all my sympathy for Palestinians, my God, I was 3 times in Ramallah, I gave talks there and so on. But I don't agree with some of my leftist friends who claim, you know, even when some of the Arabs appear anti-Semitic, we should understand this, they were so brutally disturbed by the Israeli invasion that, okay, and then they claim this is just the first phase, sooner or later they will see that their true enemy is not the Jew, but I don't know, imperialism or whatever. I claim this second, what if this second moment never happens, how should I put it? I don't, because you know, if they try to convince me when I had debates with them in Ramallah that, you know, ordinary people are confused, they are against the Jews, but give them some time and they will see that their true target is. But sorry, but you can say the same about Hitler. His true target was capitalism. He was just confused and attacked the Jews. It doesn't work here, this, how should I call it, logic of enlightenment. Now comes the concluding part where I would like to focus on how belief function. I would like to go a little bit more into this, let's call it Niels Bohr paradox, of how we can, how should I put it, believe objectively. You don't have to believe, you can believe without believing. You believe in your practice. There is a joke which you all know, and maybe you even know how I read it, but I will read it a little bit differently today. I promise you, this is a last joke that I will repeat today. You must know it, which I think exemplifies this wonderfully. Do you know that joke about a stupid guy who thought he was a grain of corn? How do you say this? Kukuruz, corn. A grain of corn, and you know the story. He was finally cured, left out of psychiatric hospital, and came immediately running back. Psychiatrist asked him why. He says, because I saw a chicken, I was afraid the chicken will eat me, you know. Psychiatrist, but you know that you are now human. He said, I know, but does the chicken know that I am no longer corn? But now, you may laugh at it as a joke, but sorry, can I tell you something to provoke you to the utmost? And I think I mentioned this in a different context yesterday. You know that maybe Yugoslavia disappeared because a chicken wasn't allowed to know. You know what I mean by this? The chicken was Tito. I think I mentioned this yesterday, that I read in some memoirs that the nomenclatura around Tito knew already in 72, 73 that the economic situation is horrible and that sooner or later something will have to be done. This something, of course, would and did involve fall of the standard of living and so on. And what I read in this, I don't know who the author is, one of these old Serb guys who now want to get some money selling memoirs, that then the top nomenclatura around Tito came to the conclusion that, but my God, if we make this public, Tito is old, he will die unhappy. So it was a kind of a collective conclusion that Tito should not be told, so let us postpone the crisis till Tito dies and then allow to explode it. And this is what happened. Throughout the 70s, somehow the artificial half welfare was sustained. As you probably know, the price was tremendous debt, and then 10 years later, the crisis exploded, much worse crisis, with combined with greater debt and so on. And again, why? And then that's how it began. I don't think that the later crisis had anything to do with any nationalist passions. Milosevic was simply the first to use, as already improvised yesterday, I think, this crisis presented a problem to communist nomenclatura, no? How to legitimize itself. And the only option, almost the only, not quite, was to play the nationalist card, no? And Milosevic perfected this formula. Nomenclatura can survive if it makes a pact with great writers and all those horrors and so on. But look at the fundamental paradox, which is, again, literally, it was the structure of this joke. Tito was a chicken who shouldn't yet know. And now, so that you will not only say that I use this, although this is not comical, but also very tragical, only comical examples, what about another example from our everyday life, so that you will not think that I am only making fun or what? You know, isn't it that, let me take even a very noble example. Let's say I have cancer. Of course, I hope it's not true, you never know. I would, of course, if I will be strong enough, if I were to be strong enough, I would try not to tell this to my children and so on, you know. I will try precisely to not let them know. So you have this structure of maintaining appearance, the chicken shouldn't know, which lasts quite a lot. This chicken shouldn't know logic, you find it also with in the process of so-called Potemkin's villages. You know, I don't know how it was here, but I know in Slovenia, when it was known that Tito will visit a certain village, you know, the street was paved. This logic of Potemkin's village, where the leader is the chicken who shouldn't know, was brought to its extreme, I heard, towards the end of the 50s in China, when there was hunger, and Mao Zedong said, I read this in a very anti-Maoist book, those memoirs by his personal doctor.